The rain in Seattle doesn't just fall, it mourns. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Sterling Vane Tower, watching the gray mist swallow the Space Needle. 5 days ago, we buried Harrison Vane, the titan of American logistics, and, more importantly, my father-in-law. Today, his daughter, my wife of 7 years, Elena, was sitting in his mahogany chair. She wasn't mourning anymore. She was measuring the room for new drapes. I'm Mark Sterling. I spent a decade building the tech infrastructure that turned Vane Logistics from a regional player into a national powerhouse. I wasn't just the husband. I was the engine under the hood. But as Elena looked at me across that desk, her eyes weren't filled with the warmth of the woman I married in a small chapel in Vermont. They were cold, like polished flint. And before we go deeper into this story, take a second and hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. Here on Family Secrets and Revenge, we know that the people closest to you can sometimes be the ones holding the sharpest knife. Mark, she said, her voice devoid of the grief that had consumed her just 48 hours ago. The board and I have been reviewing the restructuring plan. We feel that having a spouse in a high-level executive position creates a conflict of interest that we can no longer afford. I laughed, thinking it was a joke, a dark, stress-induced coping mechanism. Elena, I designed the neural link tracking system. I'm the one who secured the Chicago contract. What are you talking about? She slid a manila envelope across the desk. Your severance package. You have 20 minutes to clear your desk. Security will escort you out. The words felt like a physical blow to the chest. 20 minutes? For 10 years of my life? I looked at the envelope, then back at her. The woman I had stayed up with until 3 a.m. just a week ago, holding her while she sobbed over her father's passing, was gone. In her place was a stranger wearing a $4,000 Chanel suit and a mask of corporate indifference. You're serious, I whispered. Harrison isn't even cold in the ground, and you're purging the people who actually know how to run this company? I know how to run it, Mark, she snapped, her eyes flashing with a sudden, sharp defensive anger. My father ran it like a family business. I'm going to run it like a global conglomerate, and that means removing any sentimentality. You're a reminder of the old way. You're a liability. I looked around the office. I had picked out that mahogany desk. I had suggested the blue-gray paint on the walls because it helped her focus. Every detail of her professional life was a reflection of my support, and now I was being treated like a virus that needed to be quarantined. I realized then that Elena hadn't just inherited her father's wealth, she had inherited a hunger for power that made her unrecognizable. The silence in the office was deafening as I walked out of the executive suite. My team, people I had mentored, people whose kids' names I knew, people I had fought for during the 2024 tech crunch, wouldn't look me in the eye. They stared at their monitors, with their fingers flying over keys as if they were suddenly the most dedicated employees in the world. Two burly security guards, men I used to greet by name every morning, stood behind me with their arms crossed. They were just doing their jobs, but the lack of eye contact told me everything. Elena had already sent the internal memo. I was radioactive. I placed a framed photo of Elena and me on our wedding day into a cardboard box. In the photo, we were laughing under a maple tree in Vermont, the autumn leaves a brilliant orange behind us. It felt like a photo of two dead people. Is this because of the inheritance? I asked as Elena walked past me toward the glass-walled conference room. Is this about the 30% stake your father left to me in his private trust? She stopped, turning slightly, her expression hardening. It's business, Mark. My father was soft on you because he liked your spirit. I'm a CEO now. I don't need spirit. I need results and total control. You're a liability to the merger I'm planning. A merger. That was the real reason. She wanted the board's unanimous approval, and my voting rights were a hurdle she didn't want to jump over. As the elevator doors closed on the 42nd floor, I felt a strange sensation. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was the chilling realization that I had given my life's work to a woman who saw me as a line item to be erased. She thought she was taking everything. She didn't realize that I was the one who held the keys to the kingdom, and I hadn't even started my engine yet. I didn't go back to our penthouse in Bellevue. I knew the key cards would be deactivated, the locks changed, and my clothes probably packed into garbage bags by a concierge who had once called me sir. Instead, I drove my old 2018 truck, the one Elena hated because it didn't fit the brand, to a small, dusty storage unit I kept in South Seattle, near the industrial docks. Inside was a server rack and a workstation I'd built before I ever met the Vane family. It was my fortress of solitude. For years, I had integrated my proprietary code into Vane Logistics. Elena thought she owned the software because the company paid for the servers. What she didn't know, what even Harrison hadn't known, was that the core architecture was built on a ghost protocol. It was a fail-safe I created back in my freelance days in San Francisco. It wasn't a virus, it was a heartbeat. All of the entire Vane Logistics cloud-based routing system was tethered to a private encryption key that I renewed manually every 72 hours. If I didn't verify my identity, the system wouldn't crash. It would simply become stupid. It would lose its AI-driven efficiency and revert to a basic, manual input mode that would paralyze a company of this size. If you were in my shoes, sitting in a dark room after being betrayed by the person you love most, would you walk away quietly or would you start typing? I'd love to hear your point of view. Tell me what part hit you the hardest in my story and share your thoughts in the comments. I opened my laptop. The blue light reflected in my eyes, casting long shadows against the corrugated metal walls of the storage unit. I wasn't just going to take my code back. I was going to show Elena exactly what happens when you fire the man who built your empire. 48 hours after my termination, Vane Logistics held its first quarterly gala under Elena's leadership. It was a black tie event at the Seattle Art Museum, designed to signal to the world that the Vane Empire was stronger than ever. She was wearing a dress that cost more than my first car, sipping champagne and telling investors that the transition was seamless and that redundant leadership had been removed for the sake of agility. Meanwhile, I was in my basement, watching a series of red blinking dots on my screen. I didn't delete anything. I didn't steal data. I simply initiated a latency loop. At 8:45 p.m., right as Elena took the stage to announce a new partnership with a massive retail giant, one of the smart logistics grid began to stutter. In the world of global shipping, time isn't just money, it's physics. If a ship misses its tide window by 10 minutes, it can cost $100,000. If a fleet of 200 trucks misses their GPS-optimized routes, the entire supply chain of the Pacific Northwest collapses. On the giant screen behind her, intended to show the company's projected 20% growth, the map of the United States began to flicker. Instead of sleek blue lines showing efficient delivery routes, it showed a chaotic web of red zigzags. The AI was routing shipments from Miami to Seattle via Honolulu. Elena's face went pale under the stage lights. She tried to swipe her iPad to clear the screen, but it was frozen. The investors, men and women who had millions of dollars tied up in Vane Logistics stock, began to murmur. And this wasn't just a technical hiccup. It looked like a total systemic failure. "It's just a minor server sync issue," she told the crowd, her voice trembling slightly, though she tried to maintain that CEO poise. "Our tech team is already on it. We're migrating to a new, more secure server as we speak." I sat back in my creaky office chair and took a sip of lukewarm coffee. "Minor," I muttered. "Wait until you see the major ones." By midnight, the Vane Logistics internal comms were in a state of absolute meltdown. The automated routing system, the brain I had spent 5 years perfecting, had suddenly decided that all shipments destined for New York should be held at a warehouse in the Yukon for customs inspection. Despite the fact that there was no international border involved, the company was hemorrhaging money by the second. Oh, my phone rang at 3:12 a.m. I didn't even have to look at the screen to know who it was. The caller ID said Elena Home, a contact name I hadn't changed yet. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. She called again immediately, then a third time. On the fourth try, I picked up. I didn't say hello. I just waited. "Mark, what did you do?" she screamed. There was no CEO poise now. She sounded like a panicked child. "The entire network is down. The Chicago contract just walked because their medical supplies are stuck in a frozen warehouse. My head of IT says they can't even find the source code for the routing engine. Where is it?" I'm not sure what you're talking about, Elena, I said, my voice calm and low. I'm currently an unemployed man enjoying his severance. I'm prohibited from discussing company business, remember? A conflict of interest. You said I was a liability. Why would you want a liability helping you? Mark, stop playing games. People are going to lose their jobs. The board is talking about a vote of no confidence. Then I guess you should have thought about that before you had security escort me out like a criminal, I said, and then I hung up. While Elena scrambled to hire experts from Silicon Valley to fix my code, I began digging into the files I downloaded on my way out. I hadn't just taken the code, I'd taken the black box. Harrison Vane's private digital ledger. Harrison was an old school guy. He trusted me with his passwords because he viewed me as the son he never had. I'd always suspected Harrison was a bit of a shark, but what I found in those encrypted folders was much darker. There were payments to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, evidence of bribing port officials in Savannah, and most shockingly, a secret agreement to sell a 40% stake in the company to a rival firm, Thorne Global, owned by Elena's friend and college sweetheart, Julian Thorne. Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts so far on this story below. I read every single one. It seems Elena wasn't just firing a husband. She was clearing the path for a conspiracy that would have broken her father's heart. Julian Thorne was a man I'd met twice. He was the kind of guy who wore $5,000 loafers and talked about disrupting markets while actually just destroying competition through predatory buyouts. Seeing his name in Harrison's files was a shock. Had Harrison been in on it? No. The dates showed the negotiations started only 3 weeks ago. Harrison had died 4 weeks ago. Elena had been talking to Julian while her father was on his deathbed. She wasn't just modernizing the company, she was selling its soul. She fired me because she knew I would never let Thorne Global touch the tech I'd spent a decade building. I was the last roadblock to her multi-billion-dollar payday. I looked at the server logs. Someone was trying to brute force my encryption from an IP address in New York, Thorne's headquarters. They weren't just trying to fix the glitch, they were trying to steal the ghost protocol. I showed up at the Vane Tower the next morning at 9 a.m. I wasn't wearing my usual hoodie and jeans. I was wearing a sharp charcoal suit. I didn't go to the employee entrance. I walked right through the main lobby. Elena was there, looking like she hadn't slept in 48 hours. She was surrounded by 4 men in identical black suits. Thorne's cybersecurity team. They were failing. My ghost protocol was encrypted with a 256-bit rotating key that changed every time someone tried to unauthorized access. It was like trying to hit a target while being blindfolded on a merry-go-round. "You!" she hissed when she saw me. The security guards started to move toward me, but I held up a single piece of paper. "I'm not here as your ex-husband, Elena. I'm here as the CEO of Sterling Recovery Systems. I've been hired by 3 of your board members to perform an independent audit of the technical catastrophic failure that is currently costing this company $40 million a day." The look on her face was worth every late night in that storage unit. When she looked at the paper, a legitimate authorization signed by the head of the board, who happened to be an old friend of Harrison's, who didn't trust Elena as far as he could throw her. "In my office, now," she commanded. I followed her in. She slammed the door and turned on me. "How much, Mark? Just give me the override code and I'll double your severance. Triple it. Just make the red lights go away." "I don't want the money, Elena. I want the truth. Why did you really fire me? And why are you talking to Julian Thorne about a merger that would liquidate your father's legacy? I know about the Cayman accounts. I know about the Thorne agreement." She froze. The mention of the offshore accounts hit her like a physical blow. Her eyes darted to the door, then back to me. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under, Mark. My father left this company in a mess. We're over-leveraged. Julian is the only one who can save us." Just then, the door opened without a knock. Julian Thorne walked in, looking smug. He didn't even acknowledge me at first. He walked straight to Elena's desk and tossed a leather-bound folder onto it. "The merger papers are ready for signature, Elena. My guys say your system is beyond repair. It's a total loss. Sign these, and my infrastructure takes over by lunch. We'll absorb the losses, and you get your payout." He finally looked at me, a condescending smirk on his face. "The husband. Mark, right? You should probably leave. This is a conversation for people who understand how to close a deal, not someone who plays with Legos and code all day. If you were me, watching your life's work and your marriage go up in flames at the tip of a pen, what would be your next move? Share your thoughts in the comments. Julian, I said, leaning against the wall, your cyber team is currently trying to bypass a ghost protocol. If they keep trying for another 20 minutes, they're going to trigger a deep wipe. Are you prepared to explain to the SEC why Vane Logistics' entire database, including the records of your illegal offshore transfers, just vanished into thin air? Julian's smirk vanished. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that you've been using Elena to get access to this company so you could bury your own debts. I've seen your balance sheets, Julian. Thorne Global is a hollow shell. You need Vane's assets to keep your own creditors from seizing your planes. Elena looked at Julian, her eyes wide. Julian? Is that true? You said you were saving me. He's lying, Julian shouted, his face turning a mottled red. He's a disgruntled ex trying to blow up the deal because he's bitter. I checked my watch. 10 minutes until the deep wipe, Elena. You can sign those papers and watch Julian take what's left of your father's company before it implodes. Or you can let me fix it. But my price has changed. What do you want? She whispered. I want your resignation. Today. I want the board to appoint an interim CEO while we search for a legitimate successor. And I want the 30% stake your father left me to be converted into voting shares immediately. Julian grabbed the pen. Don't listen to him. Sign it. He's a vulture. Nah, Helena, I said softly, stepping closer. He doesn't love you. He never did. He just wanted the keys to the warehouse. Look at the data I sent to your private email 10 minutes ago. It's all there. The Thorne Global bankruptcy filings he's been hiding. Elena grabbed her laptop and opened the email. As she scrolled through the documents I had unearthed from the black box, her face didn't just go pale. It went gray. She looked at Julian as if she were seeing him for the first time. You were going to let me take the fall, she realized. The merger agreement says I'm responsible for all technical liabilities. You knew the system was failing because you were the one trying to hack it. Julian didn't even try to deny it. He just sneered. You were always too emotional, Elena, just like your father. You wanted to be the big CEO, and this is how it's done. He turned to leave, but two men were standing in the doorway. They weren't security guards. They were from the FBI's white-collar crime division. I had made a call before I walked into the building. As the agents led Julian away for questioning regarding the offshore bribes and market manipulation, the room fell silent. The red lights on the server monitors were still pulsing. Fix it, Mark, Elena said, her voice hollow. Please, just save what's left. I sat down at the mahogany desk, the chair she had fired me from, and typed a 64-character string of code. I hit enter. The red lights turned green. The heartbeat sound stopped. The shipping manifests across the world began to update in real time. The Chicago contract wasn't lost. The ships were already docking. I had never actually broken the system, and I had just put it in a coma. It's done, I said. Does this mean, can we try again? Elena asked, reaching for my hand. I looked at her, and for the first time in 10 years, I felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no love, just the cold clarity of the Seattle rain. No, Elena, the system is back online, but we're offline forever. I didn't take the CEO job. I knew the board would offer it, and they did. But I didn't want to spend my life in a mahogany office waiting for the next betrayal. Instead, I licensed my ghost protocol to Vane Logistics for a fee that would make a king blush. I stayed on as a consultant for 6 months to ensure the company survived. Then I walked away. I started a nonprofit tech incubator in the heart of the city. I'm helping developers who didn't have the right names or the right connections get their ideas off the ground. Elena lost everything. The board sued her for breach of duty, and the legal fees ate up her inheritance. She ended up living in a small condo in the suburbs, the very place she used to mock when we were climbing the ladder. They say that power corrupts, but I think power just reveals who you were all along. Elena thought she was the one in control because she had the title, but she forgot that an empire is built on the people who understand how the bricks are laid. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. This story is a reminder that integrity always outlasts greed, and that the person you think you've discarded might be the only one holding the foundation together. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the shadows of corporate betrayal and the ultimate comeback, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel, Family Secrets and Revenge. We have so many more stories of justice, truth, and the complex webs of family to share with you. What would you have done if you were Mark? Would you have saved the company or let it burn to the ground to teach her a lesson? Share your overall thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and I can't wait to hear your perspective.